Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Good. Are we able to get back on YouTube? We had quite a few people there waiting for us. No?
Yeah, it's
Oh, good. It looks like it is going. Good. It is going. YouTube is on. Good. Anyways, back to what we're saying. Mr. YouTubers, please right away try to subscribe and hit the bell and stay in touch and share and do everything you could to make our class a superstar class, okay? We want a superstar class where everybody in the world is learning Talmud, okay? Good. Now I want to start, I'm going to continue the Talmud where we left off with, okay? Where we left off the Talmud yesterday. We left off by Rav Yosef, okay? Where are we? Oh, Rav Yosef Omar. Rav Yosef Omar, Hainu Taima de Rav Chisda. This is the reason of Rav Chisda, okay? Rav Yosef is arguing with Rabbah as to what the reasoning of Rav Chisda is. Now remember, we explained Rav Chisda's statement, right? We explained Rav Chisda's statement with the egg and the chicken and everything. Very good. We explained that. Now, Rav Yosef is giving an alternative explanation for the reasoning of Rav Chisda. You understand that, Dan Sadiq? So it's almost like we're starting from scratch. We did not disprove Rabbah. Rabbah's opinion is 100% accurate, or not accurate. It is not disprovable, right? Rabbah's opinion as of now stands strong. Okay, however, just because his opinion stands strong doesn't mean he's right. It could be that there's another reasoning. And Rav Yosef disagrees. He says, I'm sorry, I think there is a different reasoning to this very same concept. So Rav Yosef says, this is the reason of Rav Chisda. Mishum de komevato klime chone. Because you are canceling a vessel from its prepared use. Now here is a completely different logic according to Rav Yosef, and listen carefully, big difference. Rabbah says the reason why you cannot catch the egg rolling down from the hill is because you were never intending to do that because it was not normal for it to happen. Rav Yosef says no. The reason why you cannot put a bowl to catch a rolling egg down the hill is because you are canceling the use of that bowl for the rest of Shabbat. And that is prohibited. Before you catch the egg, what are you allowed to do with that bowl? You could eat your cereal and milk. You could eat some soup, right? If it's chicken soup, don't eat it in the same bowl that you eat your cereal and milk because that's milchik and fleshik, dairy and meat. You're not allowed to do that, okay? However, what? Were you making like I don't know what I'm talking about? No. I do know what I'm talking. I think I know what I'm talking about. Huh? Depends. You have to clean it. And anyways, the point is, if you have a bowl, you're allowed to use it for, I can name a whole bunch of uses you're allowed to use it on Shabbat. Once you catch that egg in there, you know one of the things that you can't do with it is? Move it. You can't move it, you can't remove the egg, and you can't even move the egg, which means you can't put anything else in the bowl. You can't move the bowl, you can't move the egg, you can't do anything with this bowl. You took a bowl that was perfectly usable for Shabbat, and you destroyed its use for that Shabbat. After Shabbat, you can use it. But you are not, so Rav Yosef says you're not allowed to take an object which is permitted for use on Shabbat and now make it into something that's prohibited for use on Shabbat. Now we're pivoting back to the Mishnah's concept as well, where it says you're not allowed to put a bowl to catch the dripping oil. Right? If you're not allowed to put a bowl to catch the dripping oil, now if the oil drips in that bowl, what's going to happen to that bowl? You can't move it. So now Rav Yosef's explanation of Rav Chisda pivots back to the Mishnah. Rabbah's statement, if you look at Rabbah's reasoning for Rav Chisda has no connection with our Mishnah, because our Mishnah, we're talking about catching dripping oil. That's actually normal. So according to Rabbah, in our Mishnah, you should be able to move the bowl to catch the oil. Right? Only according to Rav Yosef's opinion does it now pivot back and show, okay, well maybe that's the reason of the Mishnah. Why? Because you're not allowed to cancel a vessel from its use. And Shmuel over here, my name's also Shmuel by the way, but Shmuel over here, a different Shmuel, has a question for me.
Why wouldn't you be able to move the oil if it's inside your house?
If what?
You're going to catch the oil of the candle.
Right.
In your house, which is but we'll be able to dug out the hole.
Why? Because we're talking about muksa over here. We're not talking about Rishus HaYochid. We're not talking about Rishus HaRabim. We're talking about a bowl that's muksa. The oil. The oil is muksa. Okay, and we're going to discuss later on in this Gemara next week when you're not going to be here. We'll discuss it, right? But here the Gemara is beginning to discuss the rules of muksa. That was a joke because obviously if you're not going to be here, we're not going to be discussing it. But the rules of muksa are very complex. The rules of muksa have nothing to do with Rishus HaYochid, Rishus HaRabim. That's actually a prohibition. That is a biblical prohibition. Has nothing to do with muksa. Here we're talking about muksa, and the oil that comes out that drips out from a candle is muksa. Why is it muksa?
Can we now say it's muksa?
Okay, you want to throw, again, we can throw around the word muksa. I don't mind using the word muksa over here. It's fine. The reason why I said before to watch out using the term muksa, because you have to ensure that muksa doesn't interfere with us analyzing and originating the concept of muksa. Okay, you cannot understand where muksa came from if you think it always existed, right? I say the same thing about these atheists. Okay, the atheists, they try to figure out where they're from. They can't figure out where they're from if they don't realize that there's ultimately some reality that's beyond what they understand, right? I call it God. Other people might call it the bigger reality, the great reality, right? As a matter of fact, you should know throughout history, okay, the secularist movement always laughed at the Jewish people. Why? Because Judaism in Kabbalah, it basically says that all reality was created, including matter. We always said matter didn't always exist. Okay, and you have no idea how many scientists, even in the modern era, up until like maybe 60 years ago, right? They basically laughed at the Jewish people. They said, you think that matter always exists? You think that matter was created? No, matter was always here. It just evolved from one thing into another thing into another thing. And the Jews are saying, no, the matter wasn't always here. Everything was created from scratch, from nothing. We call it yesh me'ayin. You could see it in some of the earliest philosophical books of Kabbalah, of Judaism, the concept of that this entire reality came from absolute nothingness. Okay, which means that even matter was not here. Now, all of a sudden, 60-something years ago, the scientists, they come up with the Big Bang Theory. And what does the Big Bang Theory determine? Yesh me'ayin. The Big Bang Theory determines that, matter didn't always exist. It was all in this complex, deep, compressed, what's it called? This energy, by the way, you should know that by the way, I have a few scientists over here. I know I'm not a scientist, but if any people that know science want to challenge me, whether you're online, by the way, if you're online, you can put in the comments. I get your comments from Facebook, from YouTube. By the way, if somebody was here in the previous class a few minutes ago that got shut down and we restarted it, if you put a comment or a question, you need to put it again in this video, because unfortunately the last video, it got erased. I'm sorry, you have to do it again. But if you put a comment, we will try to deal with your question, with your inquiry, with your statement. If you want to say hi, I'd like to say hi back to whoever you are. You could even put in a comment where you're from, because sometimes we have interesting places. We had somebody from Perth, Australia. We have somebody from Sydney, Australia. We have all the people from all over the place. Please put in the comments where you're from, and if you want to ask a question or an inquiry, please do so. We really appreciate it. What was I saying? Oh, the Big Bang.
Isn't that matter to matter, which makes more matter?
So again, according to the Big Bang Theory, all reality was condensed in what they call this an infinitely small point. Okay, it's crazy that they use the terminology, an infinitely small point, and they have no idea what type of energy it was, right? Because all the energy that they know today, they see it as it is attached to matter, right? But energy, meaning move things, they judge energy by how it moves around matter. There's no other way to join. You can't judge energy without matter. How do you judge? We have a scientist. He's saying that no. So tell me, what is it? How do you figure out if there's energy or not? How do you determine whether energy actually exists or not?
Oh, how do you determine if it
No,
exists?
how could you measure energy? How could you determine if there is or isn't?
You gotta have a way to measure it. That
But and that's exactly what I'm saying. So thank you for admitting that I know maybe I'm not always wrong in science.
No, it's true.
It's true. You need matter to judge. Meaning you cannot determine if energy is there if you don't have matter. The whole way to determine if energy exists is through matter. Yet there's a type of energy that is beyond matter that the scientists say exists. that they have no idea what it is, they have no idea how to measure it because they've never seen it, they've never dealt with it before, called the energy prior to the Big Bang. They have no idea what it is. Right? Now, by the way, what I tell people is the Kabbalah has been speaking about this way before. It's called infinite energy. Okay? And by the way, I'm going to tell you something spooky, Kabbalistic over here for all of you guys that came all the way to Tzfat to learn some Kabbalah, and then you got stuck in Rabbi Kopel's class learning about eggs rolling down a hill. Okay? So I'm going to tell you something crazy that was actually said by the Arizal, right here in Tzfat. This is what he says about creation. He says prior to creation, God's infinite power, infinite light, it basically encompassed everything. And by definition, infinity, it is everywhere, it was everything. There was no room for anything else. So what does it say? It says that he then, in order to create the world, it said he took infinity, he squeezed it into the center point of infinity. He took infinity, he condensed it into a small center point of infinity. Then around that infinite dot, he removed the light, which means he created a dark or a hollow zone, which is actually that's called the removal of the siluka or, which is not the tzimtzum. The tzimtzum is the condensing the energy into a small center point. Okay, and then he removed the light from around this center point of energy, and then he allowed the infinity to let out its light. Now, it's not 100% clear. Some people suggest that the light came from outside of the circle. I'm actually suggesting that from my understanding of the Arizal, the light came from the center of the circle. Why? Because infinity was condensed into an infinitely small point, which is exactly what the scientists have determined today. Yeah. That infinity was condensed into an infinitely small point. Now the light from around it was removed. There was an emptiness created around that infinite, condensed infinity. Now that infinity spread open and created all reality. All right? So that is actually the Kabbalistic narrative of creation, which crazy seems to match a lot of the Big Bang Theory's conclusions. Not necessarily all of their conclusions, but some of them. Yeah. Okay, because science has to get things wrong. God doesn't. So if we're getting it from a godly source, it doesn't have anything wrong. It's 100% perfect. Sometimes we don't understand it. We need to understand it. Sometimes we understand it more. Sometimes we understand it less. But ultimately, it's true. Science always has flaws in it, and that's why they keep on changing and they keep on advancing, because they find their flaws and then they try to fix them. Anyways, let's continue with our Gemara. Okay, back to Muktzah. Okay, Rav Yosef basically says you're not allowed to destroy a vessel from its use on Shabbat. If you are going to do something to that vessel that's going to prohibit you from moving it on Shabbat, then you're not allowed to do it. And that is why he says you're not allowed to put a bowl to catch the egg rolling down the hill, because if the egg falls into it, the egg, which is muksa on Shabbat because it's noilod, who says it's going to crack? It could crack. We're not that's a different discussion. We're saying, let's just say it won't crack. Even if it won't crack, it's going to fall into this bowl, and the egg itself is muksa because it was born on Shabbat. Anything born on Shabbat is called noilod. It's automatic muksa. And since the egg is muksa in the bowl, you're not allowed to move the egg. Therefore, you're not allowed to move the bowl. Therefore, the bowl loses its use on Shabbat, and therefore it's prohibited. That's Rav Yosef's opinion. Now, do you think Abaye is going to say, Rav Yosef, you know what? Your opinion makes a lot of sense. I'm not going to challenge you. No. Abaye is going to say your opinion, even though it makes a lot of sense, but we're going to make sure that it holds up to critique, which is ultimately the true idea of science. Yeah. Okay, I say this all the time. Yeah. People, somebody came to me and they asked me, do I think that the Talmud is based on the scientific method? You know what I told him, Dan Tzaddik? I told him, no, I think the scientific method is based on the Talmud's method, right? Which means that you make a statement and then everybody criticizes you, and then we see if your statement holds to critique or doesn't, right? That is actually Gamara ideology, which predates the scientific method. And by the way, it's very possible and very likely that the people that came up with the scientific method studied Talmud, because they were actually, a lot of them were Christian, but they were very into studying Jewish literature. And it's very possible that after studying the Talmud, they said, hey, you know what? Let's take the Talmud's philosophy, the Talmud's way of thinking, and let's kind of put it into a secular formality, and then we'll call it the scientific method. Okay, everything. If you want to know the biggest plagiarism, is from the Torah. The Torah is the source of all goodness, of all wisdom, is the Torah, which is God's. He gave us the gift. He gave the Jewish nation the gift on Mount Sinai called the Torah. And in that Torah is infinite wisdom. And this infinite wisdom is where all wisdom of the world comes from. And if somebody tells you something that's actually accurate, an accurate wisdom, there's a source in the Torah. It's somewhat plagiarized, at least maybe unintentionally plagiarized. But it's definitely plagiarized from the Torah, because the Torah has all good in it. That's it. Okay, if you want to know wisdom, you want to know God's word, that's where it is, in the Torah itself. Okay, nowhere else. Don't look for other sources. Okay, let's go back to the Gemara. So Rav Yosef says, you're destroying a vessel from its original use. Eishvei Abaye. Abaye now tries to challenge him. And I'm not going to go through the challenges, because they're almost identical to the challenges on Rabbah, right? They basically the same thing. What about a barrel that's dripping wine from a roof? You're putting something to catch it. Now it's destroying its use, right? And we said, so therefore we said, well, tevel is muchon eitzel Shabbos, shem aver v'tikni metukan. So he says that if you're going to catch the wine of tevel on Shabbat, you can still use it. What is tevel? What's tevel? Unties produce. I mentioned this in a previous class, that in Judaism you must tithe your produce, at least in Israel, and if you don't, it is not kosher. You have to take out truma and meiser, you have to give it to the kohen. Truma, meiser, you know what this is? You have to take certain donations to give to the kohen, to the Levite, yeah? Tithe. Not tithe. Tithe. Yes. It's a very common word, right? Anyways, yes, so if produce is produced by Jews in Israel, it must be tithed. It's part of it's a holy thing. That's actually why here in Israel there is kosher certifications on produce. If you go outside of Israel, there is no kosher certification on produce. You can buy whatever produce you want. Okay? If you have a Jew in Sydney, Australia, he goes to the fruit store and he buys whatever he wants. Right? Buys produce. If you have a Jew in America, he buys produce. Only in Israel, these crazy Jews need to have a kosher certification on their bananas. Okay? You know what? That's bananas. But it's true. It's true. That's the truth. You have to have a kosher symbol on our produce here, because they need to be tithed. Now, if produce is not tithed, it's not kosher. However, are you allowed to tithe produce on Shabbat or not? Yes. No. You're not allowed to tithe produce on Shabbat. If produce that was not tithed comes into Shabbat, you just have to wait and leave it and eat it after Shabbat. You're not allowed to tithe produce on Shabbat. I'm sorry, can't happen. Huh? Why? Because that's the rule. It's a rabbinic rule, but you're not allowed to do it because it's like fixing something on Shabbat. You're not allowed to make something that didn't exist prior. You're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to make something that wasn't used prior. Since you couldn't eat it before Shabbat, therefore you cannot tithe it and eat it on Shabbat. However, the rabbi said that if you break the rabbinical rule and you actually tithe it on Shabbat, then you're allowed to eat it. So, you're allowed to eat it, right? Now, so that is how we neutralize the challenge from the wine dripping, right? If the wine drips, right, you're allowed to catch it, right? Even though you won't be able to drink the wine because it's tevel, it's not kosher. But if you went and you tithed the wine, you can then eat it, right? Good. He brings another example. You're allowed to put a bowl to catch these sparks. Seemingly, if you catch the sparks, it's also not going to be used for Shabbos anymore, because are you allowed to carry sparks?
No.
Could you carry sparks, Dan Sadiq? Depends on what. Oh, so Dan Sadiq is a smarter Talmudist than he even thinks himself. That's exactly the answer of the Talmud. It says, what are you talking about? There's nothing there. There's nothing, you can't carry a spark. It doesn't exist. Right? So basically you're not meaning that if the bowl actually catches sparks, okay, so it caught the spark. But now the spark's gone. There's nothing there. So since there's nothing there, you're allowed to move the bowl again. So that's the answer. Amar Rav Huna, but the Rabbi Yeshua, Nitzaitis Ein Bei Mamash, it says, Nitzaitis don't really exist. There's no really thing of a spark. Now we go to the other concept, V'chein Kodesh Nisbara, a beam that broke from the roof, it broke, it fell down. We said you're allowed to put a bench or a bed beam to hold up the beam, right? And so seemingly, if you're holding up the beam with a bench, what's going to happen? Could you move the bench out? What do you mean? If it's holding up the beam is heavy, it's being held on the bench, you can't move the bench, right? So the Gemara answers there is possible. We're talking about that you could put it, but you have to put it like softly. You cannot put it tight, because if you put it tight in the bench, then it won't be able to move. But if you kind of put it there softly, if you really want, meaning the beam fell, but it didn't fall all the way down to the floor. It's kind of hanging there. You're just kind of putting the bench softly there to make sure that it doesn't fall more, but it's not necessarily going to be unusable. That's what the Gemara concludes as well there. Yeah? If we say, what about catching dripping water on Shabbat? We say we're talking about dripping water that you could actually use. Yeah? Yeah, meaning that could be that you're actually going to drink the water. You ever have water dripping from your roof and then you just take the cup and drink it? You ever did that? Huh? You can't say you have. It does sound disgusting. I would never do it. I was just trying to see if I could find somebody here that would do it.
If you're desperate enough, maybe.
If you're desperate enough, you do.
Actually, in Mexico, when I lived in Mexico, we had big water tanks on our roof and leave the tops of them open because the rainwater would go in there, and then as it comes in the house, it gets filtered out.
Oh, but you're drinking it after it's filtered, not before it's filtered. Yeah. That's the point. It's a very important difference. Okay? But apparently in the olden days, we didn't have such fancy filtration systems. Some people would drink the water from the roof. Now we bring another refutation. He says that if you see a bunch of your little chicks running around in your yard, and you want to put a basket upside down so that the chicks could jump on it and play on it, they're going to climb up and climb down. Are you allowed to do that on Shabbat? It says yes, but hold on a second. If the chicks go on top of it, then you can't move it on Shabbat. You're ruining its use. You want to take a basket and put it upside down in front of a bunch of little chickens so they can run up on it and run down on it. Right? But if they run up on it, then it's not usable anymore. Oh, so that's the answer of the Talmud. They might run down as well. Just like they ran up, they might run down. All right. We're going to go a little bit more into that next class on tomorrow, Wednesday. For now, I think that we kind of exhausted our time slot over here. And I will open up for questions. I know we have a few viewers, not as much as I would like, but we have a few viewers over here. And by the way, if you want to help me get more viewers, you should share this content. Even the people in the class, you could share the content, you put it all over the place, and we'll get more people. But right now, we open up for questions and answers, which means you can ask any questions on the Gemara or not on the Gemara. And we will do our best to answer it. If you're online, the best way to ask the question is to put a comment in your platform, whichever one you're on. You're on Kick, you're on Twitch, you're on whichever other one you're on. You could put a question in the comment, and we'll try to deal with it. Yes, you had a question, Yitzchak.
There's a question by Isaac Shoat. What does Tama mean?
Tama could mean it means the reason. The reason. The reason. Tama is the reason. All right? Good. Anyone else? Dirtball didn't ask any questions today. What's wrong?
I have a question.
Oh, Pinchas has a question. Go for it.
So I know we're in the 9 days right now, and so we don't eat meat, obviously. But what about? I saw recently that we're not supposed to drink wine either, except on Shabbat. Why is that?
You're not supposed to eat meat. We're not supposed to drink wine in the 9 days. Correct.
Why not the wine except on Shabbat?
Well, it says that wine makes a person happy, and these 9 days are unfortunately not happy days, and therefore we don't drink wine. That's the same reason why we don't eat meat.
Is vodka or beer is okay, is my point.
Technically, yes. Although a person should not try to overindulge in these days the 9 days before Tisha B'av. We shouldn't overindulge, right? Whatever. Again, we're not supposed to. Technically, we're not even supposed to shower. Technically, if you stink, you could wash whatever part of you that you feel stinks. You could wash, but you're not. We're not supposed to wash in these days till Tisha B'av. You can go to the mikveh because that's considered like a holy thing. Yeah, generally, yeah. A quick cleanse you could do. Yeah.
Quick shower.
Yeah. Anyways,
No marital relations either, right?
what's that?
No marital relations?
No, marital relations are allowed in the 9 days, although it says that we should limit it. Right? You have to ask your wife if that's okay, you know. You're not even married yet. Why are you asking such questions?
Oh, I just planned it.
He's planning in advance. He's like, when I marry my wife, I'm gonna warn her in advance. I don't do anything in the 9 days.
You know what Rabbi Avanya says the lipas on the 9 days? You know what he said to them on the 9 days?
What?
He says, you guys aren't machmir, that you're not taking a shower. You guys are chamayr. Not machmirim, you're chamayr.
No. You want to make fun of people? You can make fun of people. Can I
No,
not?
Rabbi, it's not an Indian to not shower for 9 days, and then you're sitting next to the guy next to you, praying next to him. You guys both smell like.
And that's probably why people don't have that much sex during the 9 days.
Huh?
If they're not showering.
Yeah, exactly. You know, that's another part of it. You know. Well, we kind of counterbalanced it. You know, like the rabbi said, listen, you can't shower, and since you can't shower, we'll throw in that you can't either have relations because we know it might make problems with the wife. Yeah. Anyways, last few questions, and we will move on. Bezrat Hashem. 10, 9, 8. Anyone else? 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. See you.